place.
Let people get into the live chat here.
A computer.
Oh, right. And we are live. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Nooner Nation. Second time's a charm, obviously. Had a little technical difficulty last week. Anybody who's ever had the same computer for 5 years and then gotten a brand new computer knows that the transition can be a little hard. Maybe even harder than a sexual transition. I don't know, but I mean,
Those can definitely be difficult, but the process itself is more enjoyable. With the transitioning to a new computer is just a pain in the ass. Well, sexual transition can be a pain in the ass, but it's what you're into.
Yeah, because I mean, if I was to transition to a female right now, like, I'd still have all my passwords saved. I'd have all my favorite websites. Like, I lost probably somewhere up to 24 favorited Pornhub links. You know?
God,
I know.
That's like just a step down from the burning of the library in Alexandria.
Yeah. There was a lot of knowledge lost there. A lot of knowledge. Mm-hmm. So, if any of you Nooners don't recognize the voice on the other end of this, I am joined today by the co-host of the Iconoblast Podcast. Also, he is a prolific writer and producer for the Tetherball Media juggernaut. I'm joined by Matt Cooper, who goes by Coop. So let's welcome Matt.
Yeah.
Matt, what's going on, man?
How's it going, everybody? I prefer Coop or Cooper, depending on the situation, because I've hated my first name since I was a little kid.
Today by the co-host of the... Gotta open up the live chat, and the audio from YouTube came on. It's a shit show over here at the Nooner Nation, Matt. So as soon as we get our first sponsor, I'm hiring you. You and your lady can move up to Des Moines, Iowa, which probably has nicer weather right now than in Texas.
I imagine. The last time I was outside it was about 30 degrees, which for a lot of the other people in the country is nothing, especially considering my girlfriend's originally from Chicago, so 30 degrees is like summer weather for her practically.
Yeah.
I mean, she could hang out outside in a t-shirt and shorts and she's not all that bothered by it. But for me, coming from Southern California, I'm a little bit more used to it now that I've been here in Texas for just a little over a year, but it's still strange to actually have seasons again.
Yeah. We were just talking off air about the first time I met you. I think you had maybe been in Austin for, I don't know, were you even there for a week at that point? It was right around the Super Bowl.
I think at that point, I moved here on January 6th of last year, actually. That's when we very first drove into Austin.
Okay, so you would have been there for about, 6th. You would have been there for about a month, right at a month, because I think the Super Bowl, and I remember this, the Super Bowl is on the 6th because Dan Holloway's birthday is on the 6th, and we all went out after the Super Bowl for that. And I have gray flashes of that night and me and you sitting in what is now your studio or your set area drinking, I think, Fireball, and just God knows what we were talking about. I just know we just sat there and talked for about 2 hours.
Fireball. I think that we were talking shop a little bit. We were talking about your job from what I recall, and also just podcasting and the network in general. And then it was, I think, the following day, you sat in on a recording of Softcore History.
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that was a good time.
That was a blast.
I can't believe that I've been here for just over a year now, because it seems like, the time has absolutely flown by. That's one of the fastest years I've ever experienced.
Well, Matt, time flies when you're having fun.
It's been a lot of fun. I honestly can't believe that we have the opportunity that we've had to do this, to come out here to Texas, a completely new state, new city, new job. It's first time I've ever been paid to do something that I was actually passionate about. So it's been a wild fucking ride, man.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about the new state. So, I mean, give us a rundown. I know your history a little bit just because I've been listening to Iconoblast and I know you off air and stuff. But to give us a rundown, I know like you spent some time, most of your professional life kind of in the Hollywood realm, right? I think in film production.
Yeah, for the most part.
Before that, so I believe you're from the, up north a little bit as well.
Well, the overall sequence of events was I started off in the music scene. So straight out of high school, I was playing in a band all through high school, continued after I got out of high school, took a short break to join the Army, and that didn't pan out because apparently they don't like it when you have scoliosis and lie about it. So finished all my training and everything. I was getting ready to get deployed, and then I got a back injury during like our final field march or our final road march, and that's when they found the scoliosis and checked my previous medical history and learned that I lied on my application about not having any pre-existing medical conditions. Apparently they've got a pretty big issue with that because they threatened to send me to prison for it.
You should have just told them you were gay. They wouldn't have a problem with that.
Well, it was just before everybody was okay with that in the Army. This was back in 2002.
Okay. And speaking of, not to cut you off, but speaking about being gay, your heterosexual life partner Joel in the live chat here is saying it looks like you have plant dreadlocks.
Oh yeah, I was trying to see. I don't have. Joel is the one that's really good about getting everything set up visually.
Yeah.
So
well, I think isn't he like a photography director or something by trade?
Yeah, the director of photography. He's been doing it for well over 10 years now.
Yeah, a decade of DPing, huh?
Oh yeah, lots and lots of DPing and directing photography. Yeah, he's got. He was a Spirit Award nominee. He's won a handful of awards for his work as a cinematographer. He's had at least one film go to Sundance. Honestly, the hands down, even with all the time that I spent in the film industry after I got out of the music industry, that being in the music scene kind of segued into being in film because I understood how to use the sound equipment. So Joel was actually the one that kind of tapped me to be a sound guy because he was already in the industry at that point. And I ended up spending somewhere between 8 and 10 years working in film. And throughout that entire time, he is still hands down the most naturally talented cinematographer I've ever met in my life.
Oh yeah, yeah. We won't deep dive too much on Joel because Joel, I see you're listening. You're coming on the show next, dude. So be ready for that. But yeah, I've just seen like just his Instagram, man. Like just him taking pictures of his Finnish. What's his girlfriend? She's
Czech.
Czech. Oof. Found him a Czech girl
from the Czech Republic. She's a beautiful girl.
Oh yeah. Well, they typically, I think most of those like Eastern Blocky places, right? They're either 10s or they're 4s, right?
I think it's sort of like once they get up to a certain age, they hit a brick wall and they go from being a 10 to being a grandmother.
All right.
But it's a very late age, so you got plenty of time. By the time that transition happens, you're probably old enough to not really care.
Right. Yeah. Like there's some babushka, right? You see hobbling around town, and she's actually like 40. She just has smoked a lot and lived in the Soviet era, kind of thing.
Oh so, yeah, especially if the further east you go, the lower the ages that they hit that wall. The Czech Republic is well outside of that boundary.
Hey, so something to be aware of, Joel. Something to be aware of, Joel. It might be tied. She's getting up there, right? She could be close to 30 by now. It might be time to look at trading her in.
Oh no, he's got at least another like 25 years before he has to worry about that.
Gotcha. Speaking of that, Matt, our boy Matt over at American Rustic Works says he's working on a piece of wood right now as he listens. I get that effect from a lot of people. I don't know if you go dry, I don't know if you go double underweave, but just make sure your kids don't walk in on you. It's embarrassing.
Yeah, and I think that whether you go dry or you're using any sort of lubricant or anything like that, really depends on the situation, depends on how much time you have.
Yeah. I mean, as an adult, I mean, a lubricated jerk session is pretty rare.
Oh yeah, that's like on special occasions. You got the wife and kids out of town for an entire weekend.
Yeah. Yeah,
or,
you're spending a couple hours in front of that laptop, you know.
Yeah, maybe like, around your birthday if you can get some time to yourself.
Yeah, well, I'll be in Austin in Airbnb by myself for my birthday. So, you know, we'll see. We'll see.
What you need to do is you need to get yourself a virtual reality headset like the Oculus Quest 2.
Yeah, speaking of that, by the way, I have this in my notes. I saw this today. You hanging out with your girlfriend, getting in VR bar fights. And I found this to be the most humorous thing. For a guy have you been in like physical bar fights and you just miss it? Or are you a fan of Roadhouse and want to live that life?
Definitely a fan of Roadhouse. I don't trust anybody who isn't a fan of Roadhouse. I haven't been in any actual bar fights because all of the group fights that I was in happened when I was in the music scene, which I got out of the music scene when I was probably around 22, 23. But the fights that would happen in the music scene would all happen at shows with, bands like Donnybrook or Annihilation Time. I mean, Donnybrook isn't a nardcore band, but I spent a lot of time in the nardcore scene, which, Davey, if you're listening, shout out to Davey because he's one of our listeners that's into nardcore. But yeah, those fights weren't so much bar fights as they were a bunch of kids from the suburbs trying to act as tough as possible.
Yeah.
It was all bullshit.
Yeah, like trying to get in a fight with the least amount of actual violence possible.
Exactly.
And that's how the mosh pit was born.
Very much so.
Very much so. So yeah, let's get into this. So you were in the music scene. You did that for a while. Trying to recall, were you bass player? No, you're guitar.
I played guitar. I played the real guitar, not the bass guitar. Bass is for people who don't know or can't learn how to play guitar. I played in the band for, I don't know, maybe around 8 years or something like that. And then just as everything was petering out with my music career, we had some falling outs in the band that I was in. One of the guys started not so much sex, but a whole lot of drugs and rock and roll. And that ended up getting everybody to kind of go their separate directions. But right around that time, that was when Joel contacted me, because him and I had been friends for a few years at that point. He contacted me and he was looking for somebody to help out on some film projects. I didn't have anything else going on, so I was like, well, fuck yeah, I'll get in the film industry and see how that is. It sounds like it should be fun. So I started working on film projects with him, and that just picked up to become a full-time job for quite a few years. And then it was actually in the film industry so Joel initially met Jessie, Jables. He initially met her working on some early film projects, and he was the one that introduced me to her. And we knew her for, over 10 years at this point. And it just so happened that when I first started Iconoblast, a friend of ours, one of the previous co-hosts of Iconoblast, he was a friend of hers also, contacted her because at that point she was already doing Drinking Bros and Ross Patterson Revolution. Let her know that we were doing a podcast. She listened to it. She liked the overall idea of the show. She liked the way that we put everything together. She thought it was funny and interesting. So she told us to keep working at it, and if we showed some commitment to it, then she would be interested in kind of incorporating us into everything else that they have going on. And then in around October of, maybe it was around August of 2020, that's when she finally asked us if we would like to be part of the network. And Joel and I obviously said, fuck yeah, because nobody in their right mind is going to turn down an opportunity like that. So we told her that we'd, you know, keep the show going. We'd move out to Austin. We'd work at the studio, do producing work. And yeah, we just sold off a bunch of stuff, packed up everything else that we didn't sell, and then hopped in a car, drove for 24 hours straight to get out here to Austin, found an apartment within the first like 3 days that we were in town, which also amazingly, we got super, super lucky that the apartment that we found just happens to be less than a block from the studio. So we were able to just walk to the studio every day when we had to go to work.
I mean, that is lucky. For anybody who's been to the studio, though, they're judging you right now, Coop.
Absolutely. I have lived in some of the shittiest parts of LA. I've lived in some of the shittiest parts of Southern California in general. And that section of Austin that the studio is in, especially right over by the apartment that we were living in, is one of the sketchiest areas I have ever lived in my entire fucking life. It is ridiculous over there.
Yeah. So, I mean, I've told this story on the show plenty of times, but when I came down for the Super Bowl, I got an Airbnb in those condos or like townhouses behind the studio. So if you go out the back door, the soccer field it'd be to the right of the back door. Mm-hmm. Back there, like from my Airbnb, I could actually see like the back of the back of the studio. Yeah, I didn't think anything of it. I mean, when I first got there, I was kind of like, okay, like it's kind of it's one of those neighborhoods, whatever, you know. I didn't think anything of it. And then, I was like, I would every morning I'd just get up and walk to the studio. I'd actually walk to the Starbucks like a mile past the studio, but then go to the studio. Yeah. And then somebody's like, you walked around? I was like, yeah, why? And they're like, oh, yeah, we rented an Airbnb in that same complex. And on the back of the door was like this laminated poster that said, like, do not speak to anyone outside of this condo. Do not let them know what your schedule is. Don't let them know what your rental car looks like. And I was like, oh, shit. Like, am I going to get stabbed? And everybody's like, yeah, you might get stabbed.
Yeah, you might get stabbed in that area. I wish that there would have been a laminated poster like that in our apartment when we first moved in there, because we had to learn that the hard way.
Oh, did you get stabbed?
No. Luckily, I didn't get stabbed. I did almost get mugged at a laundromat that's like a little less than a block away from the studio. I was over there at around, I don't know, it must have been like 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night. It's a 24-hour laundromat. And I was over there doing my laundry, and while I was waiting, I was going out to my car. This was maybe 2 weeks after I first met my girlfriend, and I was going out to my car. The inside of the laundromat was still crowded, so I was sitting in my car reading a book while I was waiting for my clothes to get done. And it was in the middle of summer at that point, or towards the tail end of summer at that point. So I was sitting there with the driver's side door open with one foot hanging out of the door, just sitting there reading my book. And out of the corner of my eye, I see this guy come. He was like walking along. I had backed into the parking space, and he was walking along a row of hedges that were at the back of the parking lot, right up towards the rear of my car. And I see him coming up out of the corner of my eye, and I just kind of instinctively pulled my foot inside the car and started reaching for the door, because it was sketchy the way that he was walking up towards me. Mm-hmm. And once he got within maybe 10 feet of the car, he starts saying, oh, hey man, you got any change or a couple dollars that I can get from you? I'm trying to get something to eat. I didn't have any cash on me, because I never carry any cash on me anymore. I just always use a debit card or Apple Pay. I know, like, it's got to be rough for the homeless people nowadays trying to get any sort of donations, because unless they're carrying around like a Square Cash card reader, there's no way that they're
I've been to Austin at this point, man. All those homeless people have iPhones. You know, you want a couple bucks, I'll Apple Pay you, man. Like, get a Venmo account. Jesus.
Next one that asks, I'm going to have to say, like, all right, well, do you take Venmo?
I would say if like a bum was like, hey man, can you spare a couple bucks? I'd be like, I don't have any cash. He's like, I got Venmo. I'd be like, oh, God damn it. Fine, I'll Venmo you some money.
All right, yeah, I'll Venmo you some cash.
It's kind of like Girl Scouts. I was like, I don't have any cash. Like, we take credit cards. Like, fuck. All right, God, you got me. All right, well, you got me.
Now I don't have any good reason to say no.
I'll take 8 boxes of Thin Mints.
Girl Scouts are a little bit more endearing than the homeless people over on Holdsworth here in Austin, though.
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
some of them. There's my niece was a Girl Scout. I'd be afraid of her.
Yeah.
She's a tough little girl. So anyway, this guy's walking up towards the back of my car. He's asking for some money. And like I said, I just kind of instinctively pulled my foot inside the car, and I had my hand on the handle. So it was just weird the way that he was walking up towards me. And then sure enough, as soon as he gets within like maybe 3 feet of my car, he lunges at me and tries to reach into the car and grab me. And as he's reaching out with one hand, I pulled the car door shut really fast and slammed his hand in the car door. And when that happened, he started yelling and grabbing his hand, and some other people over by the laundromat started looking over and walking towards him. And he just turned around and took off running. So, I mean, I didn't get stabbed. It's a pretty mild attempt at robbery from some of the other horror stories that I've heard, but I was
but look at Coop. That's like a Jean-Claude Van Damme move, like a 90s action movie. Like, oh, you're coming at me? Slam the car door on your head. Did you give it did you have a good one-liner? Like, keep your hands to yourself. Or something like that.
One-liners. All I did after that is I just drove back over to my apartment. I was like, dude, Joel, some guy just tried to fucking rob me while I was sitting in the car. You want to go back over there and hang out with me while I get my laundry? So if this guy comes back, we can just jump him. And sure enough, Joel, being the good friend that he is, he went over there with me and he protected me.
Well, you're in Texas now, man. Like, what are you worried about that? You have a gun yet? Like, you got?
As soon as I told my parents about that, the first thing that my mom said is like, you need to go buy yourself a gun right now. And I was like, well,
I figured it comes with a lease agreement. Like, oh, sign a lease, get a Glock. You know.
I was expecting him to be handing them out at the border when we first crossed into Texas. It's like, oh, you're planning on moving here? All right, you're going to need a pistol.
Nah, a lot of migration lately, you know. But I can see, like, if you sign a lease, right, if you become a permanent resident, then, I mean, you could at least get, like, come on, Mossberg, at least like a 12 gauge or something.
They give you the keys to the apartment and then a double-barrel shotgun.
Yeah. Ooh, double-barrel
That's how it should be.
So double-barrel be dope. Very Texas. Very shotgun rider.
Governor Abbott.
Yeah. Wheelchair. So yeah, but
that's how we ended up out here, and we've been here for just a little bit over a year now.
Yeah. So your opinion of Texas over California?
I absolutely loved Texas when I first moved here, because when I first moved here, it was about $1.70 for a gallon of gas. Like the contrast between Texas and California was so insane when I first came here that I was like, holy shit, this is heaven. This is the Garden of Eden that we're going into right now.
You've reached it. Burn the carbon. Right?
Yeah, it was just a magical place that we got to where, you know, you could carry around a gun and there's not a bunch of social justice warriors running around screaming about stupid shit that I don't care about.
Mm-hmm.
Gas is cheap. Rent is cheap. It was amazing when we first got here, but within a handful of months of us moving out here, Austin in particular pretty much started turning into California 2.0. It's little California out here in Austin. The rent prices are going up like crazy, because when I was first looking for an apartment out here, there were so many places that would be super easy to afford, and now all of those places have increased by at least a couple $100 a month just in the year that we've been here. Gas has increased by like $2 a gallon.
Oh yeah,
since we've been out here. I hate to say it, but it's assholes like me moving out here from California.
Yep.
With a caveat, I'm not the one voting for the policies and doing the shit that's fucking everything else up.
Yeah.
But it's, you know, a bunch of people from the tech industry that are like, oh, wow, California's horrible. I'm going to move out to Texas and fuck it up just like we fucked up California.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that. I kind of wonder, obviously, I have never lived in either place. And speaking of gas prices, just a caveat, a friend of the show, who's a friend of your show, who lives in LA, she actually just sent a picture to a group chat that she's in with me of a gas station on her way home. That's not even like off. It's not off a freeway or anything. I mean, it's just deep into a neighborhood, and it was like $5.35 a gallon or something like that, which is nuts.
Yeah, That's fucking insane. And I mean, it's going to continue to get worse until we get a new administration in there. Preferably, I don't mean any offense to any Democrats or people that lean left that are watching the show right now.
We're not political on this show, so it's all right.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we need somebody to reset everything back to where get inflation under control, get the economy back under control, stop doing the bullshit that's going on right now. Because up until, I'd say, maybe a year before I moved out here to Texas, I considered myself to be a very, very left-leaning person. And within a year before I moved here to Texas, the center line shifted so much that I was like, oh wow, I guess I fall into being like a center right at this point, and the line just keeps getting moved more and more and more.
Yeah. I mean, again, we don't get super deep in politics on this show, but I mean, like, I consider myself to probably, if you had, for one, I will say the caveat is, I don't know why people are required in this country to fall on some level of a spectrum, right? Like, it's not.
Yeah.
That's part of the problem. But if I was to put me, I'd be a little right of center, But I think what's going on in California is not even on the spectrum. It's like wokeism or something. It's a social level of politics that don't even make sense anymore.
It's kind of turned into a ideological cult at this point. It's not even a political party. It's a cult mindset, a mob mentality. So from doing Iconoblast, which is primarily a history podcast, we do some more modern stuff here and there, but overall, I spend a lot of time between the work that I do for Iconoblast and the work that I do for the studio. I spend a lot of time researching history, and I spend a lot of time researching politics. And from what I've been able to tell so far, overall, it's not necessarily a left versus right problem, which I also agree that having a spectrum is going to be unavoidable because everybody's going to fall somewhere along.
Oh yeah, I know it's unavoidable. It's just one of those things like.
But yeah, having to align yourself with a specific part of the spectrum and then being judged by other people for where you lay on that spectrum, I think is ridiculous.
Right.
But like what we're going through right now is more of it's not, I think the internet and social media in particular is the newest iteration of something like gunpowder. It's such a massive innovation that affects everybody on such a grand scale that at this point we don't know how to handle it. We're going through the second iteration of the Wild West, where, really, like I said, the creation of the firearm is probably the last thing that was as impactful to everybody in the world as the internet and social media in particular has been. Right. Because there's no point in history where everybody across the entire globe has been so closely interconnected, able to so easily communicate with each other, and you can get information from the opposite side of the world within seconds of when something happens. It's changed the size of our tribes from being somewhere between 50 and 150 people to being the entire world.
Oh yeah.
And just evolutionarily, we're not mentally prepared to handle something like that. It makes problems that are not affecting our current lives directly suddenly become important to us because with how popular social media has become and how easy it is to access information all across the world. Now it's like everything's in our faces. And we are mentally, like our brains just physically are not capable of handling a tribe that size. We have instead of having a tribe of between 50 and 150 people, we've got a tribe of, what is it, like 7.8 billion now?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And I'm just as guilty as anybody of being like the social media guy, right? Like I I love getting on Instagram and seeing like what's going
Oh
on.
yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
you know, those
So do I.
Kardashians look mighty nice in bikinis, by the way. You know,
After hundreds of thousands of dollars of plastic surgery.
don't care. Do not
Oh
care.
yeah, don't care. It's still the ends justify the means.
I'm not paying for it. I'm not living with it. I'm just looking at it. Okay? Like,
True,
but
just like
to the point of California, and then we'll move on. Jessica, we all know Jessica, CPJ. She's been on the show a couple times. We're a huge fan of cream pieing Jessica. Pieing, that sounded terrible, by the way. I say that as she used to be cream pie Jessica because we thought the cream was going the other way. She came on the show and let the truth come out where she was the one leaving DNA in the back room, not the other guy.
really.
Yes. So that was a good show.
So
That was a good show. It's actually that is
they might be
actually
supporting Jessica at that point.
we might have to change the name. We'll workshop this behind her back.
Well, there's going to be an issue with the branding if you change the name at this point.
This is true. We got to spin this. We'll keep the branding, spin the marketing. We got this. We're going to monetize Jessica. She won't even know. We'll just send her checks. But she said in the live chat, stop calling it California. It's literally LA and San Francisco, just those two cities. I've heard that. I mean, I've heard that those two population bases are kind of controlling what happens, right? Because I've heard even like, I have a acquaintance, whatever, that lives in San Diego who I had met up with a couple weeks ago. And even she was saying, like, San Diego, I mean, it's not the same as LA. Like, even San Diego is kind of like, this is all a little bit much. Like, all the stuff that's going on that we hear about in the news in LA and San Francisco, like, people in San Diego, which is another huge city, right, is saying, like, this is a bit much, right?
Yeah, it's definitely not the entire state. I mean, California is a massive state, and it has millions and millions and millions of people living in it. So you can't demonize the entire population of the state because of the viewpoints of the politicians running the state and the population centers that are voting these politicians into power. Because I mean, I came out here from California, and I even, like I said, around a year or more than a year before I moved out here, I was already right of center, whereas before, for my entire life, I would be considered left of center. I've never been extremely far left or extremely far right because, like you, I don't like the idea of being either on this team or on this team. I want to go with whoever has the good ideas.
Yeah.
If it's a bad idea, I don't care what end of the spectrum you're from. If it's a stupid fucking idea, it's a stupid idea.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you definitely can't demonize the entire state for what these, politicians are doing to the rest of the state because of these population centers. And it's, I agree with what Jessica's saying. It's San Francisco, it's Los Angeles, to a certain degree, Orange County in some places, but it's those major population centers that are really fucking everything else up for everybody else in the state, because people aren't considering, everyone up in like Redding and up in Northern California, and people that are further east, not along the coast, but further east, further inland. It's a completely different lifestyle. It's a completely different mindset. That's one of the reasons that they're considering creating I think it's the state of Greater Ohio, where Idaho.
Idaho. And it extends out to the coast, right? And it's
exactly Southern Oregon and Northern California, and also Northern California for a long time now. It's been talking about the state of Jefferson, which is Northern California splitting off from Southern California.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember at one point. I mean, it's been maybe close to a decade now, but I remember there being like a serious vote on there being a like California, the people of California voting to split the state in half. And essentially it'd be like the coastline being like West California and then having East California.
And there's been arguments for splitting Northern California and Southern California. And Northern California, if it were to split for the state of Jefferson, it would be north of the Bay Area, because the Bay Area is a literal shit show at this point. Like in San Francisco, they actually have...
Well, they're shitting on the streets from what I hear,
exactly.
Right? Like,
they have crews that have to go around and scoop human shit off the streets.
Yeah.
It's like we're living in feudal times again in one of the most technologically advanced cities in the entire country.
Yeah, it's like the tech center, right?
Sense. Yeah.
Like in the tech center. Yeah. But we can go on and on and on about that. We're not going to do that on this show. This show is about you and this voice and this mustache. Dude, the mustache is coming in. Incredible.
Oh, yeah, been trimming a little bit more than I used to, but actually it was I didn't have a mustache for a long time until Joel and I started getting ready to move out here to Texas. And while we were trying to get a backlog of episodes ready to go, because we knew once we moved out here to Texas, we were going to be busy and we might not be able to record every single week. So while we were putting this backlog of episodes together before moving out here, I mean, we were spending all of our time at home and not really going anywhere. And I was like, oh, fuck it, I'm just going to stop shaving. And then I think one day Joel mentioned something about just growing out a mustache. And I was like, oh, yeah, fuck it, I'll do it. I mean, we're doing a podcast. Nobody's ever going to see me. I don't give a shit if I have a mustache. So I just decided to stop shaving until the show went live again on Tetherball.
Yeah.
And then it was either the first or second week. I think it might have been one of our first trips to the studio, actually. Alex Jones just happened to be in the studio. He was the guest on Drinking Bros that day.
You had to say that name. Episode demonetized. We're not monetized. So, don't worry about it.
Mr. Jones from
and
Wars
me?
About Information. I love Counting Crows.
Well, I mean, that is a millennial classic. Mr. Jones, us aging millennials, right? Mr. Jones
definitely learned how to play that on guitar, and I can always tell how old somebody is by whether or not they recognize what the song is when I play it.
All right, so what we're gonna do? Get a guitar. You're gonna put the tree back behind your head, right? And you're gonna look just like the dude from Counting Crows.
Exactly.
We're gonna do Mr. Crow or Mr. Jones and me.
Yeah, that guy has. I don't remember his name off the top of my
I
head.
can't remember his name.
That guy
all I know is he has banged some of the '90s hottest women.
That is exactly what I was going to say. It blew my fucking mind because that guy is god awfully ugly. But
yeah,
it gives me hope.
Somebody in live chat, Google him real quick. It's Adam something, I think. But
that does.
Google whoever the lead singer of Counting Crows is. And also on the audio, since we're not big yet, I like to put trademarked music on the end of the audio shows. Writing it down right now, Mr. Jones. We're doing Mr. Jones and me. If you haven't heard it, you're a loser. Get the fuck off my podcast. But if you have heard it, you're gonna love it. Right? Who hasn't heard Mr. Jones?
I don't know. That's like the single greatest song from Counting Crows. That like defined a portion of my childhood, was listening to
I mean,
Mr.
it is
Jones.
kind of like, and I'm not gonna say it's the only song you have Round Here. I think they did
Round Here
for.
Was good.
They did one for the Godzilla soundtrack. I think.
Long December.
Well, I do. Yeah, I remember. Long December came out. I think I was like 6th grade when that song became popular, and it was like right when my first girlfriend broke up with me. So that was like the first song to put me in my feelings. You know,
Counting Crows is good for that. Counting Crows is definitely good for breakups.
Yeah, you know, I might. Oh, so Adam Duritz, Duritz. Duritz. But hey, long December, you know. I'm in my feelings listening to that song as I'm in like my parents' rental house in Hilton Head, South Carolina. You know, being all privileged and shit. You know, how dare you break up with me?
Hey, everybody has their own cross to bear. You can't compare your struggles to somebody else's struggles. And you can't compare somebody else's struggles to your struggles.
I know. You have like,
it's all part of the human experience.
You know, you had the Holocaust. You had like the Israelites. My 6th grade breakup. I'm not even going to say Holocaust. That was my Holocaust.
I said it for you.
There you go.
No, actually,
if you're going to cancel anybody, actually, I'll fall on this sword because you're better at this than I am. I'll fall on the sword. He'll hire me. I'll move to Austin, and I'll just do a weekly show about, I don't know, Mike Tyson or something.
Oh shit, I would be down for that. That's one of the upcoming episodes that we're going to be doing at some point. Is talking about Mike Tyson because he's got a really good hero's journey, or turning from a villain into a sage is kind of what's happened to him. He
is the most forgiven person, I think, in this country, right? Well, I don't know about the most, but he has been very much forgiven.
He's way, way up there in terms of somebody who went from being a convicted rapist who went to prison to being a respected athlete who has completely turned his life around. He's
not even an athlete, like a cultural icon.
Yeah, exactly.
People thought, I remember when he got that face tattoo. I was in high school, I think, when he got that face tattoo. It'd be like, Mike Tyson's got off the deep end. That face tattoo is maybe the greatest branding a singular athlete has done for themselves. Right? Like, I'm talking about, like, I might go get it. Like, I get too fucking drunk at the Hard AF Seltzer party in Austin. I might show up with a Mike Tyson tattoo on Monday. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
no, it's a good thing that they don't have any plans for an actual tattoo artist being there. Have you ever been to one of those?
I've never been to WTF.
Oh, really?
No, yeah, we were gonna go. We were gonna go for Dan's birthday. We drove down there, and they were closed already. So we went to some other bar that was fine. I don't know. By that point, like, I'd been drinking since before the Super Bowl started. So I don't know. We were downtown somewhere, man. I was like accusing some chick at the bar of being a porn star. I was like, I've seen you before. She's like, no, you haven't. I was like, I have. I've seen you like in porn, right? She's like, no, you haven't. I was like, I'm pretty sure I have. Like, you don't have to lie. I'm not judging you, but like, I'm a fan. No, it wasn't. Yeah, well, it depends on people's definition of porn. I thought this chick at the bar was Violet Summers. Go on Instagram, check her out.
Summers. Okay, I'll put that on my to-do list.
She's got like 10 million followers on Instagram. But so yeah. Anyways, we've spun down a rabbit hole. I can go off about Mike Tyson all day. I actually, in inspiration of you, I started today, true story, started writing a Mike Tyson episode for Iconoblast.
No shit.
I did, and I used to be, I haven't wrote anything in so long that I'm really struggling with it. And I was doing it like at work as well, like trying to do it like I had downtime at work. My writing style, and maybe you can attest to this because you write for like all of Tetherball, and you also do you write for Iconoblast, which is incredible. I have to like really just like getting into it, like is tough, but once I actually like get rolling, like I can just go off, right?
Yeah, once you get into the zone, that's when you really get a lot of stuff done. I feel like it's about 50% of the time, at least for me, about 50% of the time is just trying to get into that writing mode where I'm moving really slow. I'm having a hard time figuring out what I want to write or what the overall through line for the story is. Because even with something like American Party Podcast or Fake News, for those shows, I try to put together some sort of flow for how the information's going, something where each each previous entry is leading into the next part in some way.
Right.
But something like that, it doesn't really start to reveal itself until you've really gotten in the zone.
Yep.
And that's why I do the majority of my writing from home, is because I can't have anybody talking to me while I'm doing it. I need to just fully focus on it.
Right.
And if I ever can't fully focus on it, those are the episodes where I'm like, all right, well, fuck, this is the best I'm going to do for this week, and hopefully next week it'll be better.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. We're getting on that. 1 second, I'm going to take a time out. High and Angry. Do you know High and Angry JJ? The listener High and Angry?
Oh, yeah.
JJ? Yeah, he just popped in. JJ, I finally got your button on my soundboard. Literally, my kids are screaming downstairs. One of them's in the shower unattended. Bad parenting, but it's for you, buddy. Listen to this.
Oh, my lucky stars, a Negro.
And in Iconoblast tradition, drink, please.
Yes, I will drink to that. JJ, glad to have you in the chat.
JJ, we love you, buddy. And I send him that, like, I'm in a group chat with him, and every time, like, at least once a week, I send him Brendan Fraser from Blast from the Past delivering that quote. So if you don't know, that quote is Brendan Fraser, patron saint of Jabel's childhood, I guess. She's a huge Beef Rage fan.
Oh, yeah.
Blast from the Past. I'm sure you've seen it, right, Coop? You've seen...
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, this kid who grew up in a bomb shelter comes up from said bomb shelter in, like, East L.A. or some shit, you know? And he sees, like, a black mail carrier, and he's just blown away. Because he thinks, like, the world has ended per nuclear war. And he's just blown away by this. So... JJ, it's for you.
Oh, my lucky stars, a Negro.
I need a soundboard like that for Iconoblast.
Dude, I've just got this little thing. I've sent you a picture of it. I got 4 buttons. I don't know what they all do. I've got what I got? Ooh. And then I've got, this is my favorite one though. The Soldier Boy U. And all the nooners that watch this show know what it is. Do you remember the show You? Or have you ever seen it on Netflix? You?
Actually, I have seen it because my girlfriend's a big fan of it.
Yeah. So my wife was a huge fan of it, was talking about it. And every time she'd talk about You, just to be like an obnoxious dick to my wife, I'd do the Soldier Boy You. So I'd... You! Right?
Okay, something I'm confused about is what is with the obsession of, I mean, at least any of the one that I know, with that show? Because it's literally about a stalker. It's just a stalker who happens to be charismatic and attractive, but he's also a fucking murderer.
Well, I think women just want to be stalked, you know?
I guess they want somebody who's obsessed with them and willing to break into their apartment and steal their panties and murder people for them.
I mean, it's how I got married, man.
That's okay. So now I understand how I'm going to take this relationship to the next level.
I mean, I still play the game where my wife's out of town, right? I just jerk off into her underwear drawer. She's got to figure out what's clean and what's not. Right?
I haven't started playing that game yet, but I'm still, like I said, I'm only on about day 3 of living with my girlfriend, so I'm just kind of easing into that part of it.
Yeah, speaking of, you shacked up with let's play it straight here, Coop. You shacked up with a homely lady, very handsome woman, as we'd say.
She's, what would be the best way to describe it? Sorry, I told her that I wouldn't refer to her as it anymore. So what is the best way to describe her? She's got a great personality.
Yeah, she's
she's got a great personality. Yeah, she's kind.
She's a white lady with good credit, is what she is. And
she's got decent credit. I love her dogs. Her dogs are what keep me coming back every single day. good old Falcor and Gideon. She kind of has a way with words when I give her the benefit of the doubt and laugh at her jokes. But overall, the thing that I'm most appreciative of is that she gave me a place to live.
Ah, yes, there it is.
So she's a good girl.
There it is. There it is. No, I'm just fucking with you. The message board's already lighting my ass up. So no, like, right, like Coop. Obviously, if you're watching, if you're listening now, go to the YouTube and watch. The voice matches the look. I mean, you're a handsome man, Matthew Cooper.
Thank you. I am still batting way out of my league. I think about that almost every.
Well, I
day.
didn't say you weren't. Okay, I'm not giving you that much credit, Matt. But
there's nobody that doesn't say that, which is one of the things that's entertaining about her and I going anywhere, is that, especially when we first started dating, we would go to comedy shows and things like that. There was one particular comedy show where the comedian actually stopped in the middle of his set and he was like, "What the fuck is going on over here? How did you end up with her?" And
well, I mean, like, I'm assuming
no
everybody
idea.
just thinks that you're her retarded brother or something, right?
I hope so, at least for her sake, so she doesn't lose any street cred or anything like that. Because I mean, she's a very smart girl. She's got her life together. Obviously, absolutely beautiful. I mean, pretty much what my game plan has been so far is I'm just gaslighting her and telling her that I'm the one that's dating down to try to keep her self-esteem as low as possible.
Oh yeah.
Because as soon as she finds out that she's above my pay grade,
yeah.
Yeah,
and I'm helping you with this one because I don't know if you know this, but I've created this fun game with your girlfriend because she posted something one time about so Coop's girlfriend, incredibly attractive, like on Instagram posting stuff about her being hot essentially, and she put something on her stories one time about me post pictures in a bikini, 54-year-old divorcee comments yummy, right? And she's like, this is so true. So now, ever since she's posted that, all I do is every time she posts something, I intentionally just like semi-neg her.
No, I know.
I'm like hashtag almost yummy, or like hashtag meh, right? And it's for you, Coop. It's for you. I'm keeping her down.
I appreciate that because, like I said, as soon as she finds out that she's out of my league, I'm going to be single again.
So, but I joke. It's out of jest. She's an incredibly gorgeous lady, and you are a lucky man. So, but Gigi's in here saying Coop's a handsome guy.
Gigi, thank you.
Oh, you haven't perfected.
Gigi was actually a little backstory. Gigi is the very first person to ever send Iconoblast any sort of fan mail, which I don't like saying fan because
listener mail.
Listener mail. She was the first listener to ever send us any sort of email. And when we got that first email, Joel and I were just freaking the fuck out. We're like, holy shit, somebody cares enough about the show to actually write us an email.
Yeah, no.
So Gigi, I know you're there listening. You have no idea how much we appreciate you.
Yeah, she's probably listening stuck in LA traffic right now. So, no, Gigi's dope. She's awesome. I've been trying to get her on because she works in an industry that I think what she does, I'm not going to out her. Like, she's a very private person, and I respect that. I love you, Gigi. She works in an industry that she has a lot of knowledge that I think could benefit people. So I'm trying to get her on. It might be an audio-only show. I might fly out to California to do it with her. Don't know. We're working on that one.
To do what with her?
Do it. Meaning a show.
Oh.
Meaning a show.
Oh, okay.
Meaning a show. Once again, I understand that I just radiate sexuality.
Pure
but
sex.
she is like, she's not fucking with me. Don't worry about that, y'all. You know? So, but yeah, so let's get into the Iconoblast podcast. Nope, sorry. before that, are you now an official co-host of the Con Men podcast?
Yeah, Con Men Podcast. It's hosted by Sean Anchondo, or Hightower Sean's probably what most of the Nooners are going to know him as, which I just want to throw in a quick little aside. Pretty much everybody that is part of the Nooners group, I am a million times more starstruck and happy whenever I see recognizable names from the Nooners either pop up in our live chat or anything like that than I imagine they must be for anything that has to do with Iconoblast. Because anytime I see a new member of the Nooners that pops up in our live chat, you got Kragers, Avery, Gigi, Charlie.
Oh yeah, the list goes on and on, and they're all listening right now, so they appreciate it.
As soon as I see anybody pop up in the live chat for one of our shows, I'm like, oh my God, that's one of the Nooners.
Yeah, no, that's actually, that's the reason why I started this, is that community, the Nooner community, and for people that are listening now that may not know, I've explained it a couple of times. I try not to do it every episode, but during the pandemic, Ross Patterson and his wife, Jessie, would go live on their show, Ross Patterson Revolution, every day around noon. They'd stumble in hungover occasionally at like 1. But if you go live on YouTube, which we are right now, you have the option to do a live chat with people listening. And throughout this time of them doing it, they probably did, I don't even know how many, maybe 100 more. I don't know. Somebody's going to fact check me on that one. I would have my producers fact check me because they all quit sexual harassment suit. It's bad. Yeah, those sexual harassment suits. Like, suck it up and put on the goddamn bikini. Jesus Christ.
Do you want a job or do you not want a job?
I know. Do you want this job? Like, here's a plant. Here's a plant. I'm going to jerk off into it. Just watch. Right? No, but so the community became the Nooners. I had an evening with actually the patron saint of the Nooners, Ross Patterson, which got cut short because family members were sick and I had to drive home. It was like a 3-hour drive home. And I was, I don't know what the statute of limitations is, but I was not in the condition to drive. I'd been up for a very long time and had a few barley-based sodas. And I just reached out to the Nooner community, like, hey, like, I need to talk to somebody. Like, it's the middle of the night. I live in Iowa, so it's all cornfields. Like, can somebody please call me? And another big shout out to Gigi. She was one of the first to step up, and I had an incredible conversation with her for a couple hours on my drive home. And I was like, you know what? Like, this community is awesome. There's so many interesting and funny people. Like, we need to highlight the Nooners, right? So Nooner Nation was born. But yeah, so Con Men Podcast, you go into conspiracy theories. I actually got into it tonight, about 10 minutes before the show, with Sean about the Tower 7 thing.
I saw those. Yeah, I saw those comments on
Instagram. Yeah. Professionally, I'm an engineer. I'm not saying the government didn't do it, but jet fuel on fire will do really weird things, especially to steel. If 9/11 and all the subsequent things that happened was a conspiracy, it's the greatest secret ever kept of all time.
I completely agree. I feel like that's one of the roles that I play on Con Men is, to a certain degree, trying to be the naysayer.
Yeah, I think if you're gonna have a conspiracy theory podcast, you need to have somebody who is even a minimal bit of the devil's advocate, right? Like,
yeah. You need the devil's advocate on both sides, and that's me personally. I'm one of those people that I really want to believe in things like aliens and ghosts and, cryptids, things like that. I really, really want them to be real because it's interesting. But like Occam's razor, the simplest explanation is most likely the explanation. So
Occam's
the
razor,
majority there's been a handful of conspiracy theories that have turned out to be actual conspiracies, but having so many people involved in anything, the more people you add to a situation to try and keep a secret together, the more likely that secret's going to be let out. So for something like 9/11, I see it as maybe there were some business connections and some individuals in the government that may have been involved, but it wasn't a full-blown conspiracy by the United States government. Like, I don't think that it was a false flag attack on the scale of like Gulf of Tonkin or
If it was a false flag attack by our government, it would literally be the most successful intelligence and PSYOP mission in world history, right?
Oh yeah,
and we're not that smart.
Long shot, especially in the age of the internet, where it's that much easier for whistleblowers to get information out to the public. There's no way that you can keep a secret that big throughout the entire upper echelons of the government. It's not going to happen. There's going to be aides that are overhearing conversations. Yeah. There's going to be people who are just trying to be.
You're not keeping that many people. You're not keeping that many people quiet, right?
No, not at all.
And for something like that to be done realistically, it's also far too many people to be murdered, and nobody throw up a red flag, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I see it more like. There's going to be certain actors in situations like if 9/11 had any people that were associated with the attacks or anything like that, it was more like they heard that the attacks were going to happen on like individuals that were trying to capitalize off of the situation, not government collusion, but like
just
business
powerful people wanting to capitalize,
wanting to make money. And they were like, okay, so we've heard from some of our powerful friends that an attack like this might happen. So what can we do to capitalize off of that situation and make a shitload of money?
Oh yeah.
And there's going to be people in the
always
government
going to
be doing that.
Always going to happen.
Obviously anybody who listens to American Party podcasts, there's been multiple episodes about congressional insider trading. This is like the next step above congressional insider trading, where you're finding out information about possible world-changing events, and you are taking the steps to capitalize off of those events as much as possible.
Oh yeah, you're profiting off of them. But again, another thing we could spin down the rabbit hole on, I have learned from doing a podcast, especially a live one with interesting people, I understand how Rogan can go 3 hours.
Oh, absolutely.
Right, a good conversation can go on forever. But I will say, so your boy Davey, by the way, said ask Coop about Nardcore. Yes,
Davey
spelled with an. He put a capital and an exclamation. Is it a hard N? Is it in Nardcore?
It is a hard N. Nardcore. Davey, I was just talking about you earlier in the episode. I got your playlist earlier today. Thank you so much for that. There were bands on there that I haven't thought about since I was like 19 years old. These were bands from Oxnard, California that was the most influential music scene that was part of my experience in playing in a band. And there were bands on that playlist that I hadn't thought of in like almost 20 years at this point. So, Davey, thank you.
Cheers, Davey. He also said, yes, Davey, I'm aware. I'm trying to get Womb Raider and Titan Uranus on the show. We're working on it.
I really
possibly two of the greatest maybe two of the greatest chat handles ever created is Womb Raider and Titan Uranus, and they're both hilarious.
Yeah, which by the way, Titan Uranus, I haven't seen Titan Uranus pop up in the Iconoblast live chats in a while.
Yeah, I don't know, he's got a little, he's gone dark. If anybody knows anything about Titan Uranus, which I think I might actually have his info, but anyways, but we also have DJ Davies.
DJ.
Who actually just said, I'm a bad nooner, didn't know about the Con Man podcast, but just subscribed. So, making changes happen, man. This is what it's all about. Cross promotion.
I have been having so much fun with the Con Man podcast. The shows have turned out so fucking well. And I'm really impressed with the information that Sean's put together. And we've got, it's in terms of the permanent co-hosts that are there for every episode. It's me, Joel Benner from Iconoblast, my co-host, and then we've also got Adam Hester from the Skeleton Factory podcast, who, for anybody who knows Adam from either Conmen or from Iconoblast, there's a bit of a history between me and him, where back when I was still in the music scene,
he took your V card. We know.
He full blown took my V card. Well, actually, he was there for the aftermath of me losing my V card. It was that long.
No
ago.
Shit. All right.
Yeah, no shit. One of the episodes of the very first episode that we had Adam on the show, I think he tells the story, and I would encourage you to tune into that episode of Iconoblast to get the full story straight from him, because he tells it a lot better than I do. But Adam and we got to be friends when I was still playing in my old band, Suburban Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Him and I started a side project called General Kane, and it was pretty much specifically a G.G. Allen influenced bar band, not in terms of the music itself, but in terms of the performance of the music, where we just wanted to play bar shows to get drink tickets to get free drinks.
Yeah.
So him and I were really, really close friends for 2 or 3 years. And then once I stopped playing in the music scene, he moved up to, I was still in Southern California. He moved up to Northern California. We lost contact for 17 years or something like that. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a handful of months ago, I just get a message on Instagram saying, "Hey, this is Adam Hester. What are you doing?" I was like, "Oh, I'm living in Austin doing a podcast." He's like, "No shit, I'm living in Austin and I'm doing a podcast." So him and I ended up linking up again, and now he's on Kongman. He's been a guest on Iconoblast a handful of times. Him and Joel did an episode of his podcast, Skeleton Factory, with movie review podcast.
Okay.
It's not the type of movie review podcast that you would expect, because it's actually more along the lines of, it's like a combination of ASMR, where he's got a really pleasing voice, and at the same time he's telling you all of these strange connections between all of these different movies, and he has an encyclopedic memory of actors, directors, producers, how their lives interconnect. Skeleton Factory podcast, it's an amazing fucking show.
Yeah.
But yeah, him and I, we linked up after a good 17 years of not talking to each other, and now he just happens to be living out here in Austin. He moved here 2 months after I moved here, and we just started hanging out again because of, these serendipitous situation that we found ourselves in. It's been fucking amazing.
Yeah, it's small world, man, right? Like,
yeah,
I've had countless situations like that in my life, but we're an hour in. We're gonna get to the meat and potatoes of this. You are the host of the Iconoblast podcast, right? Where you it is historically based, but the premise of the show, right, is taking famous names and breaking it to kind of pull the curtain down, right? Like, not everybody that's famous is necessarily a great person. Fuck John Lennon, by the way.
Yes, fuck John Lennon, fuck Che Guevara. Also, Neil Young, he's on the chopping block next, because fuck Neil Young.
Yeah. Well, I mean, fuck, who goes after Joe Rogan? Joe Rogan is Joe Rogan's the godfather of all of us right now, right? Like,
and not only that, he's the weakest fucking member of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young.
Yeah, who's at the end?
Yeah, fuck Neil Young.
Crosby, Stills, and Nash. You never heard of Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young? They brought him on because he probably wrote like one okay song. Like, I guess we gotta add him.
Okay, Horse with No Name is a good song, but still, fuck Neil Young.
Not after the second time you've heard it. How many times do you fucking hear it? You know?
You don't need to hear it that many times, and then you'll realize that Neil Young has a terrible voice. He doesn't write very good songs, and he's a massive fucking hypocrite.
Oh, so Sarah, another nooner who probably pops up into your feeds occasionally. Just Sarah.
Oop, sorry, no last names.
Yeah. She wants you to say. She wants you to quote, by the way, one of the greatest movie lines of all time. Is she a great big fat person?
Buffalo Bill from Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
All right. Let me see if I can channel my inner Buffalo Bill.
You have here. I'll help you. I'll direct this.
All right.
You have a what would now be called thick girl in a well in your basement. You like Q Lazarus. You also like tucking your wiener into Q Lazarus.
I am all in so far.
Yes. Go.
All right, let's see. Oh, is she a great big fat person?
Nailed it. We might get flagged. We might get flagged on YouTube for that one.
We're gonna get taken down by the body positivity movement.
Yes, and Space Cowboy, I've reached out to Joe Rogan to come on an episode.
Space Cowboy.
Yeah, Jake, I'm actually he's gonna be in Austin. So
one of the first listeners that came out to hang out with us, and we gave him what we call a soy back, which is you take a shot of whatever liquor you want, and then you take a shot of soy sauce right afterwards, and it makes you throw up.
Yeah,
I got a video of it.
I hope you're wearing like some sort of bib or something, because I will throw up on you. But to get to that, the Iconoblast Podcast, right? Like you guys break down historical figures. You give the good, you give the bad, you give the ugly, right? Mm-hmm. So, like, what's that journey been like for you? Like, it's incredibly successful now, right? Like, it's
been doing so much better than I expected it to do. I mean, it's done more for me and Joel than I ever expected it to do in the beginning. The original idea actually came to me while I was walking to buy. I used to be a smoker, now I'm a vapor because it's 2022. Get with the times.
Yeah.
So I was walking to the store.
I don't know about you. I don't know about you, but I'm feeling 22.
Oh, I'm feeling about 65 at this point.
Oh, that was a Taylor Swift quote, by the way.
Oh shit! I'm surprised that I missed that.
I know, but hey, in this house, it's scooter cuts only.
So I was walking to the store to buy a pack of cigarettes, and while I was walking to the store, I was listening to, I don't remember what podcast it was. It might have been like Dan Carlin's Hardcore History.
Right.
And while I was walking there, I was thinking like, oh man, how many historical figures have there been that we celebrate that are actually giant pieces of shit? It's like, oh wait, maybe that would be a good podcast idea. And then once we actually started doing the show, and I started reading into the histories and the stories of all these iconic figures, I realized that pretty much everybody is a piece of shit. But if everybody's a piece of shit, that kind of changes the center line, so nobody's a piece of shit. It's like everybody's a product of their time. So the initial idea was pointing out how horrible pretty much anybody in history is that's celebrated. You've got like Abraham Lincoln, who everybody considers to be the great emancipator. You can find some very, very racist quotes from him where one of his goals of being the great emancipator was because he wanted all the black people to just go back to Africa. It wasn't that he was like entirely altruistic in his motives, but his motives ended up creating a better situation for everybody.
Right.
And
so you're saying he wasn't walking down the streets of Washington saying,
"Oh, my lucky stars, amigo."
No, he was probably saying like, "Oh, damn it, there's another one.
There's another one.
How do we send them back?" So no, he wasn't entirely that racist or biased, but he still believed in segregation to a certain degree. He thought that it would be better if he didn't believe in slavery, which also him abolishing slavery was more of a military maneuver, like a military strategy, than it was actually a humanitarian strategy.
Yep. Yeah, I've read all that.
I mean, for the majority of history, that's kind of how it goes. Is everyone in history is a product of their times, and you can find good things and bad things about pretty much anybody that you talk about.
Right.
But ultimately, everyone is a flawed human, and I think that it's important to understand those flaws and the reason for those flaws. But at the same time, there's also really cool shit about famous, iconic events or people or things that isn't really part of the main narrative that you get when you initially hear the story. So those are the things that we try to highlight on Iconoblast Podcast, is the lesser known facets of very iconic people, places, and things.
Yeah. See, I completely disagree. I think that everybody in history should be upholden to today's standards. And if they are not, they should be removed from history.
Then fuck them, cancel them, just wipe them out of the history books, and we'll start from square one.
That's a complete joke. And if you watch, if you've watched or listened to any of this podcast, I've hit the soundboard button I think 3 times now. I'd be canceled immediately. I hit that button out of love, right? And plus,
that's one of the ways that
I've been called the N-word by a black person before, in a loving way. It feels good. It's a good feeling.
I had when I was walking my dogs like about a month ago, I had a Mexican kid call me the N-word, which was really fucking confusing.
Where you're like, "Hey, shut your mouth, kid," or you're like, "Oh, just here's my wallet. Don't stab me."
No, I was kind of like, you're 16 years old and you're Mexican. You're calling a nearly 40-year-old white guy the N-word. Okay, you don't know what the fuck.
But you're in Austin, where you're like,
pay attention to that.
"Nice bird scooter, bitch." You know.
But like I was saying, overall, the show has kind of evolved into something that I didn't initially envision it as being, which is more of something to kind of level the playing field and get people to understand that everybody's a piece of shit. Every single human in history is complicated and has their flaws. There are certain ones that you can pick out and be like, okay, you're a massive piece of shit. Like we haven't done an episode on him, but like Mao Zedong. I don't think you need to do an episode on him for people to agree that he's a massive piece of shit. He's a massive piece of shit.
I think anybody who knows any history knows like Mao Zedong. I don't think he's ever been shed in a good light.
Outside of certain circles who understand history, no, he is not. He is not shown in a good light because he was a fucking tyrant.
So, but speaking of pieces of shit, Gigi just said she's home, which means it's time we wrap this thing up. Just joking, Gigi. Love you. Actually, the reason why is my teeth are floating right now. I've had Basil Hayden. I've been white girling it up with White Claws. I've been ultra white girling up because I put my White Claws in a Yeti, right? Certified not poor. I'm actually really poor because I keep buying Yeti shit. But, yeah, so let everybody know where they can find you.
You can find Iconoblast Podcast on any of the major podcast streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Stitcher, Anywhere that you get your podcast, you're going to be able to find Iconoblast Podcast. You can also follow us on Instagram at Iconoblast Podcast. You can follow me at Coop Nukem, CoopNukem.
One of the greatest, by the way, Instagram handles of all time.
Well, Jack Mandeville actually recommended that I change my handle to Coop Cooperson, which I've been considering, but then I would have
Coop Nukem. Coop Nukem is good, especially for people our age. Coop Nukem is fucking good.
There's certain people that get the joke and certain people that don't, and generally the people that get the joke are nerds that are our age.
Yeah, and fuck everybody else, right? Like, pff.
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Yeah, before we sign off,
Also,
we talk about
Joel at Joel.
Oh, Arden. Joel. Yeah, well, Joel will be on. Actually, you know what? I'll be in town next week. We'll figure something out because everybody wants.
By the way,
everybody wants a part two. Everybody wants a part 2 of you on the show. So
you want to do the Mike Tyson episode when you're in town next week?
Let's do it.
If you bring the document, we'll put that together. I've got to do.
Now you're putting it on. Now you're putting it on me. Now you're putting it on me. I get writer's block because you are such a great writer and you're so funny. I could do hubris.
I disagree with both of those.
Well, okay. So here's the thing. What I was going to say is, what I get is like writer's anxiety about starting is because like, how do I write this and be funny? When in reality, what I need to do, because I've written plenty of things before in the past, I just need to just get into writing. Like, get into the zone and writing, and then the humor comes out, right? Yeah. Like, I get too hung up on trying to be funny, right?
That's
you can't do that.
Really hard part.
Yeah.
I actually have an easier time making something funny if somebody just gives me, like, a list of bullet points and rough paragraphs, and then I go through them like, oh, it'd be funny if I said this here.
Yeah.
Like, when Joel writes an episode, it's much easier for me to write jokes into it than it is if I'm writing it by myself.
Yeah. So we'll do that. But for everybody listening, he told you where to find him. Coop Nukem on Instagram, Iconoblast Podcast, Joel R. Benner. You get that R in there. Because I think Joel Normal Benner is a gay porn star. If my research is correct?
Well, yeah, that's.
Is that why he added the R? He decided to change careers?
Well, no, he wanted to separate his Instagram accounts because he's got his main Instagram account that he makes money from, which is Joel Benner, and he's got the Iconoblast associated Instagram account, which is more professional.
Makes sense. Well, Nooners, you know where to find me.
His OnlyFans is Joel the Hole.
That's a good pickup. He got in early to get that one.
He was an early starter.
Yeah, he's in the Kickstarter on that one. But I'm literally about to piss my pants. So, you know where to find me. Neuter Nation Podcast on Instagram. If you want to come on the show or you want somebody to come on the show, hit me up. Either DM me through Instagram, probably the best way. We're also neuternation@gmail.com. At this point, you know how the podcast game goes. Go to iTunes, rate, review. Go to YouTube if you're watching right now. Hit the fucking subscribe button. It helps a lot. And I'm Bill Schofield. I'm going to piss my pants in about 3 seconds.